We'll start on the football field. LSU spring football practice back in action this evening. Josh White will not be there. The linebacker, after a couple of years in Baton Rouge, has decided to enter the transfer portal. But I wanted to kind of look at the linebacker room as a whole in this segment as Josh White moves on. And you can kind of look at the numbers and see the writing on the wall that playing time was not going to be too accessible to him at this point. Obviously, the start is going to be Micah Baskerville. Comes back for his 413th season at LSU, and he'll be right there in the middle of the defense. And it sounds like Mike Jones Jr. right now is running with the first team on the inside. They tried him inside early. That's what he came to LSU to do. He wanted to be that guy, and it just didn't necessarily work out. And then he found some playing time on the outside as kind of a stand-up guy, a little bit of an edge rusher, a disruptor. But I think he's going to, once again, get another look on the inside to see if he can make that work. Any reason to believe round two will be different in that way?
Yeah, I mean, once you really look at the history, especially recent history of LSU linebackers, guys like, Devin White, Debo Jones, Quan Alexander, it's all those guys who aren't the typical, prototypical NFL linebacker, 6'3", 6'4", 250. All these guys are, around 6 feet. They run really fast, and I think Mike Jones definitely fits that mold. He had a lot of trouble last season, taking on those guards, doing all the things you have to do, eye discipline and all that stuff, and you can kind of just put him on the edge and let him be an athlete, and I think that's kind of where he served better. But I think right now, especially, with us really not knowing the level of Harold Perkins and what he's possibly going to be early on in his career, I think you're going to have to need a Mike Jones to really step up and be that kind of guy that can be, one of the first two middle linebackers in this defense. And I think, with the experience he's gotten last year and this year, I expect him to make that leap. Is he going to do it? I think he's the only one who can answer that question. But I think this team will definitely be best served if he can play one of those middle backer roles, and that way you can kind of give your younger guys time to blossom and get ready to play.
Speaking of the younger guys, the guy that gets the most pub is Greg Penn. Been here a couple years now and has not seen much playing time, but the guys on the team seem to think he's really got something. Now, this was obviously Blake Baker's crew last year, and you move out with that staff and in with the new, and so it's a new set of eyes and a new group of assignments and really a whole new start. I don't think that matters too much for Micah Baskerville. He's going to be the guy in the middle, but Penn's a guy that they expect to come along, and I think it's a pretty big spring for him.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a big spring. I think this is probably Micah is probably the only guy you can pencil in. Yeah. I think that other spot, and it's going to be a very valuable spot. We saw Micah have a great year last year. We obviously saw Damone have an amazing year that year. So that guy, whoever gets that starting role, is going to have a great opportunity to make a ton of tackles. And so I think Penn is another guy. If he can, continue to get better, continue to blossom, he's a great athlete. Maybe he can earn that job, but I think it's really a lot of guys in the bunch right now. I don't think anyone's really separated themselves and just, got so far away from the pack. They're going to be the starters. It's going to be a very close, tight competition, and I think the best man will definitely win it.
A name that I was surprised to see still on the roster going into the spring was Jared Small. Mm-hmm. We talked about him a lot last year. I'm just telling you, from going out there and watching practice, that guy was going to start. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you he was going to start 12 games. I can't tell you he was the best player on the field. I can't tell you he wasn't going to be first-team All-SEC. I'm just telling you, based on the scrimmages we saw, the drills we saw, the press conference quotes, everything was pointing to a walk-on starting at linebacker for LSU against UCLA, and then he gets hurt and missed the entire season. He's back now. What kind of chance do you give him to make an impact on this team?
I think he's going to play. I mean, you can definitely pencil him in as a special teams guy. I'm sure he's going to get a ton of reps there. They felt really great about him last year, just being the leader, being a guy that's done everything the right way, showing up to work every day, working your tail off, doing everything you need to do, being that role model a lot of the younger guys can look up to and say, hey, if you want to be a fighting Tiger of LSU, this is how you do, and this is how you go about things. And I think he was that guy. He fit that mold, and he can tackle his tail off. For me, I would like my linebackers to be a little bigger, but if a guy can go out there and get the job done, you really can't discriminate on it too much. So I think right now he's going to have another great opportunity to probably earn one of those starting jobs. Like I said, Micah Baskerville is probably the only guy that you can really pencil in as a starter right now. And so I think Small's going to be right in the thick of things to earn that starting job for sure.
As I look through the depth chart, they're pretty good on numbers there. You start with Baskerville and Jones, who have played at this level. How well Jones has played is neither here nor there. Jared Small is a guy that we think would have been in the mix last year. West Weeks is being brought in. They talk a lot about Greg Penn, and then you figure Harold Perkins will have his say once he arrives on campus. I guess the question is, when you talk about guys showing up in the summer and then immediately contributing in fall camp and on the field early in their freshman year, is inside linebacker a spot Harold Perkins can do that at.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like I said, Micah's really the only guy that you really know that's going to be the starter going into the season. Everyone in town knows he's going to be the starter. But a guy like Harold Perkins, who can really play any position on the field, that guy's a tremendous athlete. And I think middle backer is probably going to be his best position, best served for him to have the level of play that you would want to see out of a five-star prospect. So I think when the second he steps on campus, he's going to be right in the thick of this competition. Now, if he can go out there and learn the playbook, be the player that we know he can be, that's going to be up to him. But if you just as far as looking on paper, you can definitely put his name in there as a guy that can definitely probably be a starter before the season starts.
All right, that's a look at LSU's personnel on the linebacker side. As we mentioned to start, Josh White, the young freshman. I can't keep up track. I think he was going to be a sophomore this year. I can't keep track of, but he may have 4 years to play for. There was a COVID year. There was an injury year. Maybe he's got 4 left. That sounds about right. But he's gone. The personnel group looks good. The question is, what are they going to be asked to do? And as the game has changed and progressed, the 6'4", 260-pound inside linebacker who comes downhill and flattens people is a dinosaur. As you mentioned, you want guys that are smaller and quicker, and you figure with House coming from the NFL where there's plenty of spread, it's also one of those deals where the transition from the NFL is not as sharp to college as it used to be, where the college was either triple option or then the spread where everyone was doing air raid, and the NFL was still quote-unquote pro style. Now they're all running the same stuff too. So what do you think the linebackers are going to be asked to do in this defense?
Oh, yeah, they're going to be asked to blitz. They're going to be asked to cover tight ends down the seam. They're going to be asked to cover backside of the back. So it's very multiple. If you really watch, Kansas City play, they do a lot of different things with their linebackers. They're not just always lined up in the same spot. So they're going to have to be very, versatile in their approach. And I think whatever 2 guys earn their jobs, you can definitely pencil them in to be very athletic guys that can do multiple things. And I think for me, I know he hasn't stepped foot on campus yet, but I just like Harold Perkins to earn that job. I just think he's way too talented, way too athletic, and do so many different things. And I think when it's all said and done, you'll probably be looking at him and Michael Baskerville being your 2 starting middle backers.
I think so too. I think Jones and Penn are possibilities, and I need to see West Weeks. I mean, he played a good bit, some special teams, and then played a little bit for Virginia. Size-wise, he fits into what we're talking about, the athlete that runs around. He's not some big, huge physical thumper. So while there is not a ton of proven depth on this team, just Baskerville, I would say they're okay at linebacker, at inside backer. We're not even talking about the outside guys, the Ojularis and that kind of stuff that are going to play kind of that defensive end role where you get up the field. These are guys that are going to play in the middle of the field. They're going to be asked to run sideline to sideline and then obviously make some plays behind a good defensive front at the line of scrimmage. So, again, I think it's a pretty good spot.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. I think for me, the linebackers is a question that we had huge questions about going into last season. You saw Damone Clark and you saw Micah really just step up their play throughout the season, and by the end, you felt like that was a strength of the team as far as positions goes. I'm not going to go that far yet, but if Harold Perkins can be the player that I think he can be, I think you can definitely put it up at that level with some of the things you can do. And then now you have depth. You're not worried about if one of those guys go down. You can trust a Mike Jones Jr. to kind of go in there. Greg Penn's been in the program for a little while now, and we'll see what Weeks has. He's definitely one of the more prototype guys if you look at the physicality that he brings. 6'3", 200-plus guy, 200-pound-plus guy. So you got depth and you got talent. I think it's definitely a position you can definitely depend on to make a lot of plays next season.
It's funny how one thing changes and your conversation changes. If Baskerville leaves, I look at this group and go, they're in big trouble. But with him anchoring one spot, then you just need one of the other 6 lottery tickets to hit, whether it's Perkins as just a true freshman, whether it's Jones in his 4th year in college blossoming to figure that out, whether it's Penn you're kind of becoming himself in his 2nd or 3rd year in college, whether it's Weeks transferring. Like, you just need one more to hit, and then you're in pretty good shape. If you had to ask for the entire group that was unproven to do it, it would be a different conversation. But with just Baskerville, feels like they're going to be just okay.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.